Hello, this is Sarah, Painty Creator here. Hope you're doing all right. I saw this lovely photograph on Facebook the other day. It's of a space in Cumbria called Arnfield, and so I thought we might have a go at painting it. Can't get the brightness any brighter, but it looks to me like mainly yellows and oranges with a little bit of cerulean blue, maybe a little bit of ultramarine, and then these luscious little darks. So I've put on my Creative Peak paper. I've taped it down. This is currently on offer on Amazon in the UK at the moment. Works out about 23p a sheet, which is good, because then if you don't like it you can throw it in the bin without worrying. So I'm going to go for about a third of the way across. Oh gosh, let's try and draw it in a straight line. I'm just using a normal sketchy pencil. Yeah, that'll do. A third of the way across, and that's got some sort of land going up that side and some shadows in, and then it's got a sort of a small boat on its side. Something like that. And it's masked up. And a shadow going the other way. That's got that, and then that bit. It's a bit big, that shadow. Let's go for it. And then the mask, because it will go in the opposite direction. And then there's maybe that mast is a little bit further forward. Yeah, let's put it a little bit further forward. That's a nicer balance. Yeah. Let's put it a little bit further forward. There we go. And then we've got a bit that goes out to a boom here, so that means that there's a boom sort of there, and a bit that comes here, and then there's a filled sail there, and a little, so we need a filled sail sort of here, and another bit of a, that was better. Get rid of all that. Hopefully you can see it. And then there are some sort of darker patches that run across here and across the bottom. So using a mixture of tube paints today. I've got some Jaune Brilliant, which is a nice neutral yellowy colour. My quinacridone gold, which I love the colours for it, and that will come together with the Pyrrole Scarlet to make a lovely orangey colour. I have got some quinacridone rose on, just in case I want that sort of lighter tone. And then I've got some lavender, some cerulean blue, and finally some French ultramarine blue. So a mixture of brands in my, they're all on my palette, and in my palette I keep them hydrated just like I would in my pans, using my little spritzer bottle. And I'm using my mop brush to start us off with, plenty of paper towel, and we're going to lie down some nice light translucent washes. So I'm just giving my paper a little bit of a spritz to keep it going, as I'm going to be working in both the sky and the sea. So this is starting just with my Jaune Brilliant, just thinking about the shapes of those clouds, and then so that's my land. I've got a little bit of watery bit here, so dropping something nice and light in the water. We can always go back in to darken it, whereas lightning's watercolour is more difficult. So now I'm just going to use a little touch of my quinacridone rose, just for some really sort of gentle, oh that's very dark, let's put some more water in it. Some gentle cloud shapes. I'm going to just lift it so that it's flat, just so that it doesn't run down while I'm doing this. So I'm going to run a little bit into here as well. I wanted to try and keep that translucency. So a little bit of Pyrrole Scarlet and some quinacridone gold makes a nice orangey colour. Plenty of water, because that is how you change the saturation. So I'm just going to blend that in. We're working wet in wet, so it will blend on the paper. We're not trying to replicate the painting. I'll keep my paper wet. We're trying to create a painting that is based upon the photograph, not replicate the photograph. And we can always go back in with another layer if we need to. So I'm just trying to keep it loose and translucent. I can paint through the boat because I can do the darks on top. I can paint through the land because I can do the darks on top of that. So I'm now just going to mix in some quinacridone gold by itself. It's a really nice, vibrant, yummy colour is quinacridone gold. And it just adds that brightness. Keeping my paper damp. So now I'm just going to, into that, I'm going to add some of this Pyrrole Scarlet. Gosh, that was a lot. So quinacridone gold and Pyrrole Scarlet. So more of an orangey red. little bit in there. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of this lavender. Because it's an opaque colour, it's quite a nice colour for popping in clouds on sunsets. It needs to be thicker. So that's what the run backs are showing. I'm just going to add a little touch of ultramarine into that lavender. Building up that sky. And then I'm going to drop some of that lavender ultramarine into the base of here. A bit more lavender in there. Some cerulean blue, a touch of that quinacridone rose, and then in good old tried and tested watercolour, we're going to give it a little bit of a spritz, and then I'm going to turn it on its side and let it dry. It's quite important to let it dry naturally if you can, or at least give it a little bit of time just for it to absorb the colours and blend on the paper, and you'll get a much nicer, sort of more even mix of colour. Just checking that these edges are painted enough. Sometimes I don't quite get to the edges. Okay, so I'm going to give that a pause. I'm going to have a rest and a cup of coffee, and then I will be back with you and we'll see what we've got. So here we are, we're back, we're dry. We know it's dry because it's settled, it's much flatter. Because it is cheaper paper, it will always have a little bit of a bump somewhere, but it's a really good quality paper for its price is this. So now I have to think about what I like. I really like some parts of this sky. I don't think this is orange enough for me. So I'm going to put an orangey glaze on and then let it dry in. I quite like the sky though. I'm probably going to leave the sky. I might add another bit of a depth of clouds on there. So I'm just going to re-wet the surface. I'm going to use my spray bottle because that means that this wash, this base colour that we've got on, won't be disturbed by my brushes. If you do it with if you haven't got a spray bottle and you do it with a brush, you just have to be so careful and light so that you don't disturb the base. So I'm just re-wetting using my mister so that I can put another layer on, and I've still using my big mop brush, and I'm going to mix up a more orangey wash. So I'm going to use this Pyrrole Scarlet, which as you can see has got a tiny bit of like an orangey hue anyway, and this Quinacridone Gold. Might need a bit more Quinacridone Gold. Let me just pop a bit more into the palette. Sometimes it's fun just using the tube paints rather than the Cotman paints. You could just use the Cotman watercolours and just build your own colours around it. Okay, so that's got quite a lot of water in. Let me just check. So I want, so that's where the land is. I want this to be light and then this side to be darker orange. So I want to blend, I'll blend that with some water in a minute. Probably just going to put a little bit more orange through, and I'll blend that out with some water. So this is called a glaze. So I've just washed my brush, water on my brush now, and I'm just blending it into the background of the existing paint. Wash my brush because it keeps picking up, and really gentle. Just going to drop a bit into here as well. Off my brush, just water on my brush, take some of it off and then just blend it in. And then I'm just going to pick up some of that paint and I'm just going to drop some darker pieces. Let me just turn my paper around again. And I'm just going to darken some bits of that, particularly under the boat, because then that's still the mainstay. Just thinking about where the land is. Okay. Pushing it into the wash that's there, and at this point we're going to let it rest. You have to watch it because if you're getting cauliflowers or rumbacks, you need to suck up any puddles of water. I've got a hair there, get rid of it before. It's an eyelash hair though. It's not my usual kitty glitter. So just watch it. And as long as you're putting thicker paint into the drying wash, so So I'll put some thicker quinacridone gold. It's almost straight off the tube. Let my brush take some water off now because it's a drying wash. I'm just going to smooth that line out, and then I'm going to wait for it to dry and stop fiddling and follow my own advice. I just go with a little bit of a spritzer bottle, get rid of some of those harder lines up in the sky. Just let it rest in and do its thing. So whilst we're just watching the paint dry, we can get our smaller mop brush and we're going to mix up a dark. So we want a really yummy dark, so it's all 3 primary colours. So I'm going to do into this wash that was the yellow and the red, I'm putting some ultramarine blue, and I'm going to put some more of that Pyrrole red in. It's making a yummy sort of dark bluey purple. If you want it more yellow, you can have more yellow, more red, add more red, more blue, add more blue. But 3 primary colours, and it needs to be fairly thick. And I'm using my small mop brush, so I'm now just going to wait for that paint to dry. I'll be back when it has. Okay, so we are, let me just drop a little bit, we're still in, the sunshine's working. So we are back dry. Hopefully that helps you see where we're at. It's probably not as orangey as I wanted, as in red orange, but sometimes you just have to embrace whatever you're on. So I've got this nice dark, I've given it a little bit of a spritz, and I'm going to put in, using this nice dark, this background of the land. So I'm going for the base colour all the way across, and then sort of land shape. So this is wet on dry. I could have just used my big mop brush. It's better a bit more water in. So when I look at the photograph, there's along this edge there's some slightly lighter, so I'm just adding a bit more water into the mix. I'm taking the, so I'm going to just do some slightly lighter.
You want the tea, fella?
Yes, please. slightly lighter edging along here. I'm just going to let my brush take the water off, and I'm just going to soften the edges of that into that wash, just so it's got less definition. It's there but not there, which I like. I'm just going to soften the base of this wash as well, just so it goes into the edge of the sea. It might run back up, and that's fine. Just putting some little sandbanks on. And they'll dry lighter, don't panic. And I'm just going to lift off a little highlight here. So that's a damp brush. Just dragging a little bit of a highlight off that hill. I'm just going to add a little bit of quinacridone gold into that, as if that side of the hill's just catching the last of the sun rays, and drop some of that dark in, and when it blends on the paper it will come lighter. And when you look at the photograph, you'll see that there are highlights of different lights and textures on that background, and we can always go in again, it's fine with that background. So whilst this bluey dark is on, I'm just going to put some more of these sandbanks on, as they help draw the eye across. Softening off underneath, just so it runs into. And then I'm just going to get my little spritzer bottle into that dark background. That yellow is just running a little bit there. So I'm just going to turn the board around. I'm just going to drop in another sandbank here, just using the fine point of my brush. And then there's another sandbank on the other side of this that comes sort of down here. And soften the water, soften the bottom away. So I've got my cup of tea, thanks to my dear hubby. So I'm just going to let that rest for a little while, and then come back in a bit when I've drunk my cup of tea and had a rest. Okay, so I've given that a little bit of a dry. I've mixed a thicker dark up, same mixtures of blue, ultramarine blue and Pyrrole Scarlet. And as you can see, it's quite thick. It's sort of a creamy mixture. I'm still on my small mop brush. I'm just trying to just build a little bit more interest back here. Some of these sandbanks that are showing. I'm trying to be brave because I always find the darks the hardest bit. So just putting some of those darks into the sandbanks. And layering on top. Remember, we're drawing the eye here to the boat, so we're trying our best to sort of think about the shapes of those. I'm just going to drop a little bit more ultramarine into this blue mix for this front one. Just to bring it a bit, maybe a touch of cerulean blue. So a bit of a different colour. A bit lighter because we can see more. And then pick up a bit of that darker colour. And they're just blobs and squiggles. Just say to yourself, they are just blobs and squiggles. So that's all they are blobs and squiggles. And I'm just going to put one, there isn't one on the photo, but I'm going to put one across here. A bit of a something to draw your eye into the painting. So I'm using a mixture of the bluey dark and the browny burgundy dark for this one, because the different tones will help just build that direction. And you're just doing blobs and squiggles. And in a minute I'm going to get the spritzer bottle on it. It'll just help push it a little bit more into the paper. And then I'm going to get my rigger brush and my little number one. And I'll have a go at the boat. So let's just get the spritzer bottle on it, just to break it up a little bit. I think that's my mop brushes finished with. Maybe not, maybe I'll use my mop brush for the body of the boat. I've just remembered that I forgot to put a buoy on. So the buoy's here, and then obviously there's a so I'm going with my darker wash on this side of the boat. that a little bit of a sail, and then this is the shadow. It can be a bit more wobbly, and that's this bit of the sail. So still with my darker brush, I'm just getting my number 1 brush out because I want the edge of this boat here a bit more defined, so it looks different to the shadow. So I'm literally just picking up the paint that's in the wash already and just moving it around. And then I'm just going to start moving this shadow around a little bit to connect it. And then paint this little boy while I'm here. And then the shadow of the boy. Okay, so time for the mask. So I'm still on my number 1 brush. I'm just taking some of the paint off. And I'm just going to go up. And just move my board around. So I'm coming up here. In one fairly confident stroke, and then I'm going to use what's on there, and I'm doing a little bit more of a lost and found because it's in the water, and then I'm just going to do this one, and then there's a I'm just going to put that on, and then this, and then the same. Just take some off there. Just extend that boom, straighten it up a bit, and a little bit of a lost and found line there. I'm just going to go, so it's from here, lost and found, light touch, and then I'm just going to put some little bits of there we go, we've got boating. So I'm going to give that time to dry and see what we need as well. There's some very fine tiny little bits of ropes and things. So I've got my tiny 0.3 brush, touch it on a paper towel, and that's going to go from there onto this boy, and then of course there's a lost and found there. quite nice. I might just get some clean water and a little bit of this lavender. Lavender's quite an interesting colour, and I'm just going to drop a little bit through and a bit of that dark, just to make the boat a bit more solid. I'm going to put it on an angle and let it drip a little bit through, give it a spritz, see what happens. And just take, that's better. Quite nice. I quite like here the red's coming out of the colour mix. Quite like that. So while this is drying, I'm going to just get some blobs on this bit. That's better. And if you get a blob where you don't want a blob, so maybe that one, you just get some water and pick it up, and then blob it off with a paper towel. But I like that sort of sense of movement in the front. It needs some texture or something. Preferably not in the sky, Sarah. Don't panic. If all else fails, go over them with white, gouache and call it stars. Oh, they come off. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, prefer that. I'm just going to splash some clean water into there as well. Let it do its thing. And I love what's happening here with that lavender. Just letting it separate and run down. Lavender's really special like that as a colour. So I'm probably going to call that a day, because I'm quite tired. Let it dry. So here we are, we're near enough dry. As always, a little reminder to take the paper off, away from your painting. If you've enjoyed this, then please like and subscribe and all the rest of it, and drop me a comment, because the comments make my day, which is lovely. So here we go. That's all that. When you take the tape off, you often see things in its for different things. So I quite like how this sort of light and dark play is around the back. I love the lavender. also quite like how we've got texture and foreground on here. Just that little reminder that thirds, the rule of thirds when you're planning, and that the boat itself has to be above halfway and not on the centre line. So when you're drawing, just sort of think about where things are. I always put the month on my paintings because I enjoy looking back at my work and seeing how I've improved against myself rather than against other people, and I would encourage you to do the same. So hopefully you've enjoyed that and that you give it a go. So look forward to seeing you probably in a week or so's time. Have fun, folks.